Making some fire.
Lightning.
So question, how am I going to get wires for wire fighting? How am I going to get a space backdrop? Do I know anyone who can edit in fire and dragons? If those are no, don't script for it. Because you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Do you want to talk about matching lyrics to...
Matching lyrics, well, you don't really have to match lyrics to what you're going to film. It does make a little bit more sense to do a video that kind of relates to the song. Otherwise, it's just like, wow, that was weird. But yeah, usually when I plan out CMVs, I like to tell stories with it. So I'll kind of like listen to the lines and think like, how would this relate to the characters, or how would this relate to the plot? And then I would kind of like create a scene to match the lyric. We have done a lot of other videos where it's just kind of like a music video where we recreate scenes from like, the comic or the show, and we just put it to the music and kind of match the tone instead of matching the lyrics.
We had one CMV that, well, the next one.
Oh, it moves! I didn't know it was going to move. Okay, that's cool. So that bottom right one is from a CMV we did to a Norwegian song. So it was about the big four. So that's Hiccup, Jack Frost, Rapunzel, Merida. So that's the big four, and we did it to a Norwegian song. So we had translated lyrics, but the thing is when you translate lyrics, sometimes things don't make as much sense. So the reason we did a Norwegian song is because we promised Norway we would, or at least this area in Norway, bands Icon, we promised them we would make a Norwegian CV. The thing is, in Norway, most popular songs aren't in Norwegian. They're in English. So I tried to find a Norwegian song real bad. And then we finally did, and I scripted for us to repeat some of the lines, which would have been fine if it had been an English song, but it was a Norwegian song. I don't know Norwegian. So we had to learn a lot of it phonetically. So I remember there was one line I had to repeat, and I couldn't actually get it, I couldn't memorize it, so instead I said, Rama Rama Bing Bong, because that matched the lip flaps approximately, and that was the only way we could make it work. Thankfully, one of our cast members was Danish, and the Danes kind of understand Norwegian, so she was able to do most of that lip syncing for us because she understood the language. But for us, it was really hard to repeat those lines that the song required. So a lot of them ended up getting cut because they didn't work out, except for Ram Ram Bing Bong. That stayed. Another good rule of thumb for CVs is to film more than you need. For example, a 3-minute CMV may require like 15 to 20 minutes of footage.
Sometimes hours.
Sometimes hours. Just because you're not going to use everything, there won't be enough diversity sometimes if you only film a little bit of footage. Sometimes you need to like double up on footage. So always film more than you need. This could be like if you're just standing around while people are getting ready to film the next thing, film like a shot of the sky, or like a panoramic, or just like somebody looking off in the distance. Just little things to fill in space, and you'll thank me for it later. Because it makes editing so much easier when you aren't scrambling for footage.
Yeah, for sure. And even when you do script CMVs, like I'll usually write down the time, like how many seconds this one line is, and kind of visualize, okay, well, it would take so-and-so seconds to like have a character, shaking out a character's hand. And then you actually film it, and it turns out to be less time. So, if you're filming a little bit of a longer sequence than you had planned, then you should be safe.
For example, we filmed a Narahina CMV, and it was based off of a K-pop song. Again, we don't know any Korean, so we're just like, approximate this. And at one point, because we were watching K-dramas at the time, we just noticed that like K-dramas have this really specific way of, and also like K-pop music videos have this really specific way of just like, almost like exaggerated romantic movements. So it's like, right? And so I had to pick a flower, but I had to arch across all these thorn bushes to pick said flower. So I go in and I pick it up and I go like this. And we watched it and we're just like, that took a lot longer than it should have, but that is so Korean. It's just like, boom. And like, so, like not intending to be, but it worked out well. When you're casting folks for your skits or your CVs or your performances, keep in mind what people's comfort levels are, and also what they're able to do. So for example, if you know an athletic person, ask if it's okay, then script them doing athletic things. If somebody you know is not athletic, don't have them climbing cliffs or anything like that.
And shoes that have an attraction.
Or like running through the woods, which is almost always what we script Courtney doing. And she hates us for it. She got her leg really torn up during this filming, actually, because I had her climbing so many cliffs. But she was Merida, and Merida's supposed to climb cliffs, but I learned my lesson. You also want to make sure that your actors are comfortable with each other. So if folks haven't, we've had incredible luck like introducing new actors to our skits and just being like, hey, this is the crew, and like them just like getting along really well with everyone. But keep in mind that folks may not get along, so it's helpful if people have met each other before and have some pre-established comfort level.
A good thing that we tend to do is we'll have everyone get together before filming and just hang out the night before, watch stupid movies together, and then that way people get a little bit more comfortable with one another. And then once we're done filming, we always like invite them out for dinner and just relax, because sometimes filming can be really stressful and we don't want anyone to leave feeling like it was a horrible experience. So we usually just try to kind of unwind together at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Location is so important. So all of these were taken from the same CMV, which is a Gravity of Love CMV from based off Tokyo Babylon, which is a really old clamp series. Yeah.
It also intersects a bit with X, so X 1999 has some of the same characters. So for this, we waited exclusively till spring, because spring in Vancouver means there are cherry blossoms everywhere. So we wanted that, so we actually waited to film this one until the cherry blossoms came out. So for this first scene, you see Jess, and this was a scene of her falling backwards, but there were like cherry blossoms everywhere. But we found a place with lots of cherry blossoms, and we filmed there. It was raining that day, but it was a really nice day to have the cherry blossoms there, because we knew that scenery was so important to the workings of this CMV. There's also a bamboo staircase in the middle of downtown Vancouver. So again, the rain probably worked well for us here, but we wanted to use that location. That location was a bit tricky in that it was sort of, at the time, it was in an in-construction area, but we just made sure that while using that location, we were respectful, we weren't screaming, we weren't wrecking anything so that no one would kick us out, even though I'm not sure we were entirely supposed to be hanging out there.
I think the stairs were okay. Upstairs where we had all of our stuff wasn't.
Yeah. And that goes for a lot of locations. So if you're filming inside, so for example, we filmed in a lot of schools, if you have one person in your crew who is a part of that school, then that can be a huge help. Because if somebody approaches you and asks, what are you doing here? You can just show them the student ID and say, we're filming a student project. And they'll usually let you go. We did this at my old school for She's the Competition. We filmed a lot there, and also a couple of Pokemon Channel. We filmed a lot of stuff at my old university. And whenever the security guards would come up and ask us, we'd just say, student project, pull out my student ID. And then the security guards, one guy was just like, oh, can I open up the gym for you? Would you like to use the gym? I'll open up this room, that room, that. He was super into helping, which was awesome. And also keep in mind that you aren't allowed to film in a lot of places, or that you have to pay money to film in a lot of places. This means you can either pay money to film in those places, or you can do guerrilla filming and just sort of go for it. This works only in really small segments of time and only in really quiet areas. Also, depending on the laws in your area, if you're filming in a public place, I know that, for example, in Montreal, which is another province in Canada, if you're filming in public, you aren't allowed to capture anyone else's face. So keep that in mind as well, because if you're filming in a public area, you catch other people's faces, depending on the laws in your state, you might be breaking a law.